In this video, we're going to explain company-wide strategic planning. So, 4 steps in strategic planning. First, what is strategic planning? It is the process of developing and maintaining a strategic fit between the organization's goal and capability and its changing market opportunity. So, idea of strategic planning is to allow in terms of companies a way to plan in terms of how the company can meet the market opportunities to capture it. So, how we do so in terms of strategic planning, we have the chart at the bottom. So we have what we know as the corporate level, followed by in terms of the business unit. At the corporate level itself, we have in terms of defining the company mission. The company mission itself gives in terms of the overall picture, the direction of where the company wants to move forward. And on this itself, they will set company objectives and goals. What do they want to achieve? What are in terms of the marketing topics and targets they want to actually move forward? And from there itself, they will design the business portfolio, looking at what products and what portfolio will best fit in terms of the company as well as their market offerings. And on this itself, this will then translate to the business unit at the product and marketing level, where they will actually provide in terms of the marketing strategies, which we talk about in terms of the marketing plan and etc. So first we talk about defining the company mission. The mission statement is a statement of the organization's purpose, what it wants to accomplish in the larger environment, and mission statement should be market oriented. So what do we mean by market oriented? So in the case of defining the mission statement itself, there is what we know as product oriented definition as well as market oriented definition. If you recall from our previous video, we talked about the marketing management orientation. To have a marketing management orientation itself, we will have to have a market oriented definition for the mission statement. So how does that translate? So in the case of, for instance, let's look at Facebook. With a product-oriented definition, they can simply say that we are just an online social media network. However, to have a market-oriented definition, to have a goal in terms that is broader, we can define it as we connect people around the world and help them share important moments in their life. So you can see there's a difference between being product-oriented versus market-oriented with regards to the mission statement, and this changes in terms of how the employees and how customers view the company. Next, we talk about setting company objectives and goals. A company needs to turn its mission into detailed supporting objectives for each level of management. So when translating in terms of from the mission statement, we go into what we know as company objectives and goals. So you can see over here, even in NYP, we have in terms of a mission, and that translates to a vision and provides in terms of strategic goals for each level of management in terms of in different topics. Going next, we look at in terms of designing the business portfolio. So the Boston Consulting Group, this is a consultancy firm, and from there itself, they have a model what we know as the growth share matrix. The growth share matrix itself allows in terms of how we actually define a business portfolio by looking at in terms of the market growth rate as well as the relative market share. So the aim of the growth share matrix itself is to allow companies to decide in terms of how they want to manage their various business units in the organization. So over here we have the chart known as the BCG chart for the growth share matrix, and on this itself you can see on one axis you have known as the market growth rate from low to high and a relative market share of high to low. In most instances itself, companies start as what we know as a question mark for their SBU. At this level itself, you have in terms of a low market share. However, they are actually entering in a high growth market. So the question for them is that how will they actually expand on it, and funds, if are provided, can allow them to move from a low market share to a high market share. And on this itself, as a high market share with a high growth rate, they will be known as a star SBU. On this star SBU itself, it requires in terms of funds to continue channeling to actually sustain it. And on this itself, when the market growth falls from high to low, it will be termed what we know as a cash cow. So at this point in time itself, the business itself, the SBU, will provide in terms of funds available for business to grow from the question mark to star and to sustain at the star level. And when in terms of the business was a decline from a high to a low market share, this is where in terms of the end of life come for most business unit, where they are in the dot stage. So you can see from here, this growth share matrix allowed companies to decide in terms of how they want to manage their different businesses from question mark to star to cash cow and to decline into dot stage. Another way we can actually design the business portfolio is using what we know as the product market expansion grid, which identify growth opportunities through market penetration, market development, product development, or diversification. How is that done is through a matrix with existing and new markets versus existing and new products. So let's start. So on this itself, even a scenario of a toy maker, the toy maker itself can have, in terms of their existing toy lines of product, supplying and marketing to the Singapore local market, and that will be what we know as a market penetration, trying to sell in terms of more of their existing line of toy products into the local market. If the toy maker was to decide to actually come out with a toy app, a toy mobile app, that will be considered a new product, and if it still continues to actually market only to the local market, that will be known as a new product with existing market, known as a product development. In contrast, if the toy maker was to actually expand their toy selection into the international market, that will be existing product in new markets, and that will be known as a market development. That new toy app that we mentioned earlier can also be brought into the international market, and on this itself, the toy market is actually looking at what we know as a diversification. So on this itself, we actually talk about in terms of company-wide strategic planning, from looking at in terms of the mission statement, looking at how we can set objectives, and finally looking at how we can design the business portfolio. I see you in the next video.